Okay, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. So for today's lecture, we are going to look at chapter 4, the fourth chapter. So we have finished looking at chapter 3. So now we are going to move on to the next chapter. So I hope that you have downloaded the lecture notes. Yeah. Okay. So reproductive system. Okay, so these are the learning objectives of this chapter, which is to compare and describe asexual and sexual reproduction process, compare and describe external and internal fertilization, and then describe the reproduction in vertebrates, and describe the human gametogenesis process, and describe pregnancy and human development. Right? Okay, so for the first subtopic, so we are going to look at types of reproduction in plants. Okay, so plants have two different types of reproduction. Okay, which is the plant can undergo as either sexual reproduction or asexual reproduction. Okay. So for sexual reproduction, it says here new plants arise through reproductive parts. So the plant will have the male reproductive organ and female reproductive organ. So the plant can produce pollen, which contains sperm cell, and in the ovary it has ovule that can produce eggs. Okay. So there will be fertilization occurs for sexual reproduction in plants. For asexual reproduction, it says here new plants arise from vegetative part of an existing plant. So example of vegetative part, you can have rhizomes such as in turmerics or ginger, or it can be through tubers such as potatoes. Okay, so those are vegetative parts. So when you plant these vegetative parts, new plant will arise, and the offspring arise from the vegetative part will be genetically identical to the parents. Okay, so because there is no fertilization, this one does not involve fertilization. Okay, fertilization. There's no fusion between egg and sperm. As for sexual reproduction, it involves fusion of gametes between sperm in the pollen grain, okay, and also eggs. Okay, so this produces seeds, and the seed when you plant the seeds, it become offspring, and the offspring produced will be genetically different from parents. Okay, and even from one plant to another plant, the feature might be different also. So that is sexual and asexual reproduction in plants. Okay, so now we're going to go through for sexual reproduction first. Okay, asexual reproduction in plants. So vegetative propagation is a type of asexual reproduction in plants involving the production of new plants from vegetative structures. So example of vegetative structures, you can have rhizomes, okay, or you can have bulb such as in onion, rhizomes such as in turmeric or ginger, and then you can have corm. All right, and then you can have suckers such as here for plantains. Okay, and then you have tubers, stolons, and also plantlets. Okay, so these are examples of vegetative structures. So when you grow these vegetative structures, the offspring produced will be genetically similar. Okay, they have the same genetic composition as the parents. Okay, so for it says here, in some flowering plants, embryos in the seeds may produce asexually from the parent plant without fertilization. So such as, for example, you can have citrus, lemon, and also blackberries. So they have seeds, and these seeds can produce offspring without fertilization occurs. Okay. So this kind of asexual reproduction is known as apomixis. So seed produced in this way give rise to individuals that are genetically identical to the parents. Okay, because it does not involve any fertilization between sperm and eggs. There is no meiosis involved. Okay, so the offspring produced will be similar, genetically the same as the parents, such as citrus and also blackberries. Okay, so for the second type of sexual reproduction in plant is sexual reproduction. So this involves meiosis. Okay, the meiosis that is required to produce sperm and also eggs, and then the sperm will fertilize the egg. Okay, the process is fertilization. It involves fusion between sperm and eggs. Okay, so each sperm and eggs will carry the haploid nucleus. Okay, haploid nucleus. When they fuse together, they form embryo that is in it can be diploid. Plants ni dia bukan macam manusia ke or animals, they are diploid, tapi ada tumbuhan yang dalam keadaan tetraploid, ada yang sampai 8N pun. Macam tu kan. Okay, so it depends on the organisms. Okay. Okay, so fertilization occurs within the flower ovary. Okay. After fertilization, flowering plant produce seeds inside the fruits. Okay. Okay, so this in this diagram you can see the structure of reproductive plant, which is it involves the flowers. Okay, so in the flower itself, it can have, okay, both main reproductive part, which is stamen. Okay, so the stamen consists of anther and filament. Okay, so the anther is the site where pollen will be produced. Okay, pollen will be produced that contains sperm cell. All right. And for the female reproductive organ, which is the pistil or carpel, female, okay, stamen male. So for pistil or carpel, it contains the stigma. Stigma is where the pollen will land. All right, and then style. As the pollen land, it forms pollen tube. Okay, pollen tube, and then from the style, it leads into the ovary. So in the ovary, it has ovule. It has many ovule. Okay, so this is where fertilization will occur. Okay, so the ovulator, after fertilization, it becomes seeds. Okay, the ovary, it will become the fruit. Okay, it becomes the fruit. Okay, so you have to know the male and female reproductive part of a flower. Okay, so pistil contains stigma, style, ovary. Stamen male consists of stamen and also filament. So it's if you can see from this diagram, it shows you the life cycle of a plant. Okay, so a diploid plant, which is the stage we call it as sporophyte. Okay, diploid 2N. All right. So in the female reproductive organ, which is in the ovary, this is where meiosis occurs to produce the egg. Okay, the egg. Right. So in the male reproductive organ, which is in the anther of stamen. Okay, so this is where pollen will be produced. So both production of eggs and also pollen in the anther is through meiosis. Okay, as you know, the process of meiosis will produce gametes, eggs, and also sperm. Okay, so in the ovary where it occurs meiosis, it will produce ini kan, alright, megaspore. Okay, spore of megaspore, and then in the anther, through meiosis, it produces microspores. So then it undergo the process of mitosis and differentiation. Then only the microspore, okay, from the anther here, it produces in the pollen grain. Okay, in the pollen grain, it has the sperm cells. Okay, so these are the two sperm cells produced. Okay, so and then for the megaspore, it produces the female gametophyte, which is the embryo sac. Okay, so this is the egg that will be fertilized by one of the sperm cell. Okay, the other sperm cell will fertilize these two polar body, if I'm not mistaken. And then here, as you can see, so this is the stage dalam keadaan haploid. Okay, haploid, and yang biru haploid. Okay, so once the pollen landed on the stigma, okay, on the stigma of the flower, the pollen will start to form pollen tube. Okay, pollen tube, and then the pollen will enter into the ovule. Alright, so that fusion between sperm and egg can produce to form the zygote, which is in the stage diploid. So from diploid, it undergoes the process of mitosis, differentiation, and growth to produce the sporophyte. Okay, the plant in the diploid condition. Okay, so and then the cycle will repeat. Okay, so it says here the pollen grain. Okay, so the pollen grain will land on the stigma. Okay, pollen grain from another plant land on stigma. So this is if it involves cross pollination. Okay, tapi ada juga plant yang boleh undergo self fertilization. So same flower can undergo self-fertilization, or flower from the same plant. Okay, so flower from the same plant, so that is self-fertilization. Okay, self-fertilization. So self-fertilization pun consider as sexual reproduction. Okay, sexual reproduction. Asalkan ada fusion between sperm dengan egg, that is sexual reproduction. Tak kisah daripada individu yang sama ataupun berbeza. Okay, that is sexual reproduction. Okay. Okay, so pollen land on stigma. So from there, the pollen will start to form pollen tube. Okay, pollen tube. So this is the pollen tube formation. Okay, so grows from the pollen grain down the style to the macrophyle and into the ovule. Okay, so they can grow and enter into the macrophyle and into the ovule. Okay, ovule. Says here, 2 sperm nuclei are discharged into the embryo sac, resulting in double fertilization. Okay, double fertilization because why? Because one sperm cell will fuse with the egg here, with the egg, forming the zygote, and the second sperm cell, kita ada dua kan, 1 and 2. Okay, the other sperm cell will fuse with the 2 haploid polar nuclei here. Okay, forming the endosperm. Alright, so the ovule develops into seed. Okay, this ovule will develop into seed, and the ovary here, okay, the ovary will develop into fruits. Alright, so that is sexual reproduction in plant. Okay, so now we are going to look at reproduction in animal. Okay, reproduction in animals. So animals can undergo both, depends on the organism, depend on the species. It can undergo both asexual reproduction and also sexual reproduction. So we are going to look at for asexual reproduction first. So it only involves one parent. Okay, as you can see here, from one cell we can assume this is maybe an amoeba. Okay, amoeba. Alright, so amoeba. So because amoeba is unicellular organism, it will not produce any sperm or eggs. So the cell, the organism will undergo mitotic division. Okay, mitotic division. Alright, nucleus that divides. Okay, nuclear division, which is mitosis. Okay, so offspring have a heredity trait identical to the parent except mutation. Okay, so because there's no fertilization between eggs and sperm, it comes from only one parent, so the offspring will be genetically similar, genetically the same as the parent. Okay, so asexual reproduction is the fastest and the most efficient way of reproducing. Okay. Okay, so for animals, okay, that practices asexual reproduction, so there are 4 types, okay, of asexual reproduction. We have here binary fission, fragmentation, budding, and partinogenesis. Fragmentation, boleh note kat sini, it is followed by regeneration. Okay, so regeneration, dia fragmentize into pieces, and then the missing part will be generated. Okay, regeneration. So we are going to look at first for binary fission under asexual reproduction. So you have here a paramecium. Okay, so paramecium, one individual. So this individual will be the parent that will divide into 2 cells. Okay, they start to divide. Okay, start to divide here, and then each part will become a separate but identical organism. Okay, so example of animals or organism that undergo binary fission is unicellular organism such as amoeba. So amoeba is prokaryote, prokaryotes. Sorry, bacteria. Bacteria is prokaryotes. Amoeba, paramecium, and algae, they are eukaryotes. Okay. So these are for organisms that undergo binary fission. For the second mechanism, okay, which is budding of asexual reproduction, which is budding. So here you have a hydra. Okay, hydra. So hydra undergo budding. Okay, it undergo budding, where it involves parent produces bud. So this is the bud, and the bud gets detached and develop into offspring which is identical to the parent. So the bud will start to form and grow to form a new individual. So this individual will either remain attached or detached. Okay, it will either remain attached or detached. Okay, to the original parents. So example of organism is cnidarians and sponges. Okay, cnidarian and sponges such as hydra and also corals. Okay, so next is fragmentation. So remember, fragmentation is followed by regeneration. Okay, regeneration. So fragmentation occurs when the body of parent breaks into several pieces. Each pieces regenerate the missing part and develop into a whole animal, such as flatworms, nematodes, and annelids. Okay, so this is a picture showing you a flatworm. This is a flatworm. Okay, flatworm. Okay, so when you find a flatworm, or rasa dia geli, or nak bunuh dia, okay, bunuh dia or cut dia into pieces. Okay, yang ini awak tak akan matikan dia, ini awak lagi banyakkan dia lagi. Okay, so you cut the head, you cut the body part, you cut the tail. So the head will generate the missing part, the body and the tail. The mid piece will generate the head and the tail. The tail will generate the mid piece and the head. Okay, so lagi banyak awak potong dia, lagi banyak lah awak dapat. Macam tu. Okay, so you cannot simply kill off this organism by cutting the animal. So you produce more. Okay, so the next one is partinogenesis, fragmentation, budding. Okay, so ini yang ketiga, fragmentation. The last one is budding. Okay, sorry, it's partinogenesis. Okay, partinogenesis. What is partinogenesis? It is producing offspring from an unfertilized eggs. Okay, so you have the egg. So the egg will become a haploid individual, and it will not require any fertilization from sperm. Okay, no fertilization by sperm. Okay, no fertilization by sperm. Okay, so it will develop into, the unfertilized egg will develop into a haploid adult. Okay, so it is common among insects, okay, such as honeybees and also wasps and other arthropods. Okay, arthropods are insects lah, alright. So in most species, partinogenesis alternate with the period of sexual reproduction. Okay, so tengoklah, ada time there's a time that the animal will undergo partinogenesis, where the eggs develop into a haploid individual without fertilization, or at another time the animal decide to undergo sexual reproduction. Okay, it depends on the requirement of the colony, for example. Okay, so for example, here you have a colony of bees. Okay, so the colony of the bee will have the queen. Okay, so the queen produces the eggs, and she is in control of the eggs. Okay, so she will decide whether the egg will be fertilized or not. If the egg undergo fertilization by sperm, okay, so this will develop into a diploid individual, where the diploid individual will become female. Okay, female offspring. So this female can either be the worker for the colony or the queen for the colony. Okay, or if she decides that the egg develop into an adult, so this will become unfertilized eggs that develop into a haploid individual that is male, and the male will become the drone, askar untuk colony tu. Okay, the drone, which is the soldier for the colony. Okay. Alright, so it says here, without sperm, the eggs develop partenogenetically into haploid male drones. Ingat unfertilized eggs develop into male. Okay, male, that is haploid. Right, haploid. And a bee mates only once and stores the sperm. She is in control of the release of the sperm. So fertilized eggs can develop into female. Okay, so the female can be queen or sterile workers for the colony. Okay, so the workers are female that is diploid. Right, male drones, haploid. Right. Okay, so another situation of partenogenesis you can see in a population of these lizards. Okay, so these lizards practices virgin birth, partenogenesis. Okay, so there's in these lizards, okay, in this lizard population, there will be no males. Tak ada male. Okay, there will be no males. So when there's no male, obviously there will be no fertilization. Okay, so how does the individual or offspring produce? Through virgin birth, where this population of lizards still requires a courtship ritual. It requires two individuals, but these two individuals are both females. Okay, are both females. They undergo courtship ritual, macam mating, but the purpose of the ritual is so that these two individuals will stimulate the release of hormones. Okay, the release of hormones. So there are two hormones involved, which is estrogen and progesterone. Okay, estrogen and progesterone. It says here, a courtship ritual is still required even though there is only one gender. There is only female in that population. So one female will take the part of a male, and another takes the role of a female. Okay, still two individual that is female, tapi satu ambil role jadi lelaki, satu ambil role jadi perempuan. Okay, taklah perempuan, jantan dan betina. Okay, jantan dan betina. Okay, so later the two lizards switch roles. So estrogen promotes female behavior. Okay, female behavior. The progesterone promotes male behavior. Okay, so without mating, few eggs will be released. So the purpose of the courtship ritual, so that there will be a surge of hormone produced for estrogen and progesterone, and the hormone produced, which is the estrogen here, when you have a surge of estrogen, so this will cause ovulation to occur and releases more eggs. Okay, more eggs. So at the end, both of these lizards, okay, that is involved in the mating ritual will be fertilized. Not fertilized, will release eggs. Okay, both will release eggs. Okay, both will release eggs. Okay, so that is asexual reproduction in animals. Okay, so ada 4: binary fission, fragmentation followed by regeneration, budding, and partenogenesis. Partenogenesis tadi apa? Ada bees, honeybee, and also lizard. Okay, they develop haploid individual. Okay, haploid individual without fertilization. Okay, fertilization. Okay, so now we are going to look at sexual reproduction in animals. Okay. Okay, tadi asexual. Now we are going to look at sexual reproduction in animals. So it involves fusion of sperm and eggs through fertilization. So when we are looking at sexual reproduction, it must involve sperm and eggs that fuses together in fertilization. Okay, so the feature of the egg is that it is large and non-motile. It cannot move it's by itself. Okay, the eggs cannot move by itself. It also contains nutrients. For the sperm cell, it is vice versa. It is small and it is motile because it has tail to swim. Okay, so now we are going to look at this term, hermaphroditism. Okay, hermaphroditism. What is hermaphroditism? It is an animal that has both female and male reproductive organ. Okay, one individual having both male and female reproductive organ for animal only. Alright, so hermaphroditic species can either simultaneously hermaphroditic species can be either simultaneously hermaphroditic or sequentially hermaphroditic. Okay, ada dua cara dia jadi hermaphrodite, simultaneously or sequentially. Okay, so it says here, in simultaneous hermaphroditic species, each individual is both male and female at the same time. Through the although the ripening of the gonads may be sequential to prevent unnecessary self-fertilization. What is gonad? It is the organ, sex organ that produces the egg. The gametes. Okay, the gonads is the sex organ that produces gamete, which is the gonad for female is ovary lah. Okay, for male it is the testis. Okay, so both. The organism will have both ovary and testes. The organism can produce both eggs and sperm. Okay, so that is simultaneous hermaphroditic. Okay, so most free-living flatworms are hermaphrodites that reproduce sexually. Okay, so you have a flatworm. The flatworm will have both the ovary and testes. Okay, so this flatworm is capable of undergoing self-fertilization and also the normal mating. Okay, and also fertilization through normal mating. You can have another flatworm, so they can mate to produce the eggs, to produce fertilized egg to form the offspring. So boleh dua-dua, self-fertilization or mating. Okay. Okay, so advantage. So what is the advantage of hermaphroditism? It is advantageous for sessile or burrowing animals that live alone in the soil. Kan, dia seorang dalam tanah tu, dia nak reproduce contohnya. So the organism can still reproduce, can still produce fertilized eggs, can still produce offspring, because the organism have both testes and oviduct. Okay, testes and ovary. Oviduct saluran. Alright, ovary, testes and ovary. So it is capable of self-fertilization. Okay, so it requires less energy to seek out breeding partner. Example, flatworm, earthworm, garden snail. So such as, for example, parasite in the intestine of animals, kan? So selalunya dia seekor je, kan? Tapi kenapa dia boleh membiak dengan banyak? Kan? Sebab apa? Sebab dia boleh undergo self-fertilization. Okay. Okay, so yang ini adalah untuk simultaneous hermaphroditism. Simultaneous, okay? Simultaneous hermaphroditism. The second one is sequential hermaphroditism. Okay, so it is practiced by reef fish, for example. Okay, so reef fish reproduce through sequential hermaphroditism. So in sequential hermaphroditism, individual is born one sex and changes sex at some point in their life. Okay, that is what it meant by sequential. So ada bermula dia dilahirkan sebagai betina. Lepas tu, at one time during the life of that animal, it become a male. Okay, depends on the situation. Okay, so it says here a change from female to male is called as protogeny. Okay, from male to female, it is called as protoandry. Okay, female to male. Okay, that is protogeny. Male to female, it is protoandry. So you have to know this definition, right? So this happens under social control, such in cases of absence of male in a particular group. So the largest female will become the dominant male. So you have a group of reef fish. Okay, so the largest female will become the dominant male later. Okay, kalau dalam group tu tak ada male dah, mati ke kena makan, whatever. So the largest female will become the dominant male. That is sequential hermaphroditism. Okay, simultaneous organism tu ada both testis and also ovary undergo self-fertilization. It can undergo self-fertilization and it also can undergo the normal mating to produce eggs. Okay. Okay, so the difference between sexual and asexual reproduction. So when you are comparing between two items, so you must compare the same thing lah, kan, apple to apple comparison. Okay, so the first comparison for sexual reproduction, it involves fusion of male and female gametes. It involves fusion between sperm. Another way of explaining it, fusion between sperm and also eggs. Okay. For asexual reproduction, there's no fusion of gametes. There's no, ataupun you can say there's no fertilization. Okay, there's no fertilization. Okay, no fertilization. Okay, so number 2, sexual reproduction, parent and offspring are not identical. Okay, why? Because to produce sperm, to produce eggs, it has to undergo through the process of meiosis, kan? Meiosis. So meiosis ada crossing over semua tu, and then sperm, there are many sperm release, so there will be random fertilization. Alright, so obviously the offspring will be genetically different from one another, and also obviously genetically different from the parent. Okay, so for asexual reproduction, parent and offspring are identical to one another, genetically the same. They have the same genetic composition. Okay, so the third difference, okay, for sexual reproduction, high genetic variability. Okay, genetic diversity increase chances of survival in unstable environment. Okay, so that's why you can see animals that practice sexual reproduction, they can be found anywhere, and they can survive. Okay, such as, for example, us human. Okay, so we can live in diverse environment because of our genetic composition that allows us to be able to survive in different conditions. Okay, for animals that practice asexual reproduction, they have no genetic variability, so the genetic composition is the same. Okay, so genetic uniformity leads to susceptibility to disease. So for example, you have a group of organism, okay, that the composition of genetic is the same, but once this population is infected by a virus, okay, a strain of virus, so because the genetic composition is the same, so it causes all the individual in the population to not be able to survive. Okay, because there's no genetic diversity, so all will get the disease, all will have the chance to not be able to survive. Okay, cannot survive. Okay, so what time is it now? Okay, So now we are going to look at types of fertilization. So fertilization mode, there are two types, which is internal fertilization and external fertilization. So this is how the sperm fertilizes the eggs. Okay, is it outside of the body? If fertilization occurs outside of the body, it is external. If fertilization occurs inside of the female body, then it is internal fertilization. Okay, so external fertilization, we are going to look at for external fertilization first. Okay, it says here, eggs are shed and fertilized by male sperm in the environment, outside of the body. Okay, outside of the body. All right, so that because fertilization occurs outside of the body, so the fertilization must occur in environment that is moist. It must have water. Okay, water as a medium for the sperm to swim to the eggs, and also to prevent desiccation of the gametes. Okay, to prevent desiccation, kering, gamet tu daripada kering lah, kan? So that's why fertilization has to occur in a moist habitat. Okay, a habitat that has water. So most of the species that undergo external fertilization release eggs and sperm simultaneously shed into the water. So this is what we call it as spawning. Okay, spawning. Spawning is the release of eggs, okay, and sperm at the same time. Okay, at the same time. But walaupun although it is said simultaneously, the eggs will be released first. Okay, the egg will be released first, then followed by sperm. Okay, so the male cannot release sperm first and then followed by eggs. Sebab apa? Sperm akan swim dulu, lepas baru nak telur tu dilepaskan, tak boleh lah, kan? So the egg will be released first, followed by the sperm, but it occurs simultaneously. Okay, so this is what we call it as spawning. So water helps gamete to disperse rapidly. Depends on temperature to coordinate gamete release at one time. So factors that increases the chances of external fertilization is that it will release large number of gametes. Okay, large number of gametes, and it involves spawning. Okay, so this example of organism is fish, amphibian, and also aquatic vertebrates. Okay. Okay, so the second types of fertilization is internal fertilization. So it says here, male gametes are deposited straight into the female reproductive tract. Okay, fertilization occurs within the female. All right, and then increase this. So this will increase the chance of fertilization because the gamete will be protected. Okay, because it is inside the female reproductive tract. Okay, it is not exposed to danger. It is not the gamete is not exposed to the predator. It is not exposed to infection by microbes. Okay, so this will increase the chance of fertilization to occur, and the gamete will not be carried away by the water current. Okay, aliran air tu kan. So there will be less chances of the gamete lost during fertilization. Okay, so therefore it only requires internal fertilization only requires small number of eggs needed to be produced. Okay, so occur in most terrestrial vertebrates. Terrestrial vertebrates are animals that lives on land. Okay, so example is mammals. Okay, so mammals give birth, birds, reptiles that lay eggs. Okay, so different ways of internal fertilization for reptile, mammals, birds, and also insects. Okay, so they mate and the sperm will be deposited into the female reproductive tract. Okay. Okay, so now we are going to look at embryonic development. Okay, embryonic development. So this is how embryo develop. You have fertilization of sperm and eggs. Okay, and then they fuse together to form zygote. Okay, zygote. Right. So So now we are going to look at how the embryo develop. So is it either as through oviparity, okay, or through ovoviviparity or viviparity. Okay, so this is how embryo developed. Okay, sama ada dalam telur ataupun telur yang maintain dalam badan female in the mother or dalam uterus. Okay, this is eggs that will be laid. Okay, lay eggs. Ini eggs develop inside female. Okay, so that is the difference between these three: oviparity, ovovivi, and vivi. So make sure you spell the term correctly. If you spell the term incorrectly, such as for example, you spell ovovivi as ovoviparity. Okay, ovoviparity, you are missing another V here, so your answer would be incorrect. So make sure you spell the term correctly. Okay, so ini tak ada maaf bagimu lah kalau salah. Okay. Okay, so the first one, how embryo develop is oviparity. Okay, kita ada O kat depan dia, oviparity. So it involves complete their development outside of the mother's body. Then it is referring to the embryo lah. Okay, so depend on egg's yolk for nourishment. So the egg may be abandoned by the parents, such as most fish, or cared after by the parents, such as birds. Okay, so example, platypus, turtle, penguins, cartilaginous fishes, such as zebra shark, most reptiles and birds, all birds and few mammals. Ini oviparity is basically lay eggs. Okay, animals or organism that lay eggs outside of the body. Okay, so the embryo depends nourishment from egg yolk. Okay, so ovoviviparity still produce eggs. Okay, but the egg is retained within the mother's body. Okay, so the fertilized eggs are retained yang awak highlight kan, within the mother's body to complete their development. So the embryo obtained from their nourishment again from egg yolk juga, sebab embryo is within the egg. So nourishment is it depends on the egg yolk. So the egg will hatch inside of the mother's body. Okay, so this will look like a normal birth, but actually it is from eggs that hatch from the mother's body. Okay, such as for example Madagascar hissing roaches ni, lipas yang besar tu. Okay, guppies, ikan guppy ni, and then tiger shark. Okay, dia keluar baby daripada perut dia, nampak macam bersalin normal, tapi sebenarnya the egg hatches inside of the mother's body. Okay, eggs that hatch inside of the mother's body. Okay. Okay, so the next one, the third one is viviparity. Okay, yang second ovovivi. Eggs maintained inside the mother's body. Vivi is through development of embryo within the uterus of the mother. Okay, the young develop within the mother's uterus, obtain nourishment from the placenta. Okay, so the offspring are fully developed at birth, found in some cartilaginous fish such as lemon shark, some amphibian and few reptiles and most mammals. Okay, so these are organisms that practices viviparity. Human also viviparity. Kalau ovoviviparity, kalau yang oviparity, frogs also oviparity. Kan, tadi eggs release and then sperm fertilize the eggs inside water. So telur yang dah fertilize tu dalam air, telur tu is considered as oviparity as well. Okay, eggs of the frogs. Okay. Okay, so reproduction in invertebrates ni kita stop dulu.